City of mine, how I love the city of mine. It never gets me down. City of mine, how I love the city of mine. It never gets me down, yeah.
I was born in the city, I was raised on its edges. My pop worked his life when its confines. I found love in its center. If I could live here forever, think it'd be for the better. I love the weather, even though it's fog 24/7. I love the people, this is city. I met all my best friends, and I wanna thank every brick. I wanna thank every entrance to every building that I step in this city of mine. I owe you most my best moments in life. See, I fell in love for the first time in Golden Gate Park. I saw my first rap show at Great American Hall. I used to beg my homies for a ride across the bridge to goof off and spend the whole damn day doing whatever we want. Keith drove us down to Ike's place while we'd roll up a blunt, and me and Jack would get stoned, walk around and get lost. Don't think I'll ever truly pay back all I was lucky to get just by walking through the city. No, I'm a small part of this.
City of mine, how I love this city of mine. It never gets me down. City of mine, how I love this city of mine. It never gets me down.
I never really had a place to call my own, so I travel and I roam till I find that. But I'm full of adventure, so I wander and I venture, and it's safe to say that really I don't mind that. I book a flight to try to figure where my mind's at, a spot where I don't spend no money, just some time at. I mix and mingle with the people till I learn a little. I brought some weed and baby, maybe we could burn a little. She said you're funny, I said no, I'm Xavier, then I left. Sun shining, birds chirping, let me take a breath. I'm headed to the city where my chance to make it best. What people like to give a little, then you take the rest. I'm hoping one day maybe I can find a place to rest. I fell in love with life and wonder where it take me next. I like the hustle and bustle, I fell in love with the fashion. I feel the pulse of the city, it's moving me like a passion, and it's mine.
Hometown, baby, we go way back. All the situations, circumstances, still we don't mind. Steady going on, I dance around the street lights. Hey, I know every street sign, hanging around the block. Like if you are my friend, then you are welcome any moment. Yeah. City of mine, how I love this city of mine. It never gets me down. City of mine, how I love this city of mine. It never gets me down.
The Dow is over 50,000 right now.
We won with poorly educated. I love the poorly educated. I love the poorly educated. I love the poorly educated.
Happy Tuesday, everybody. What's going on? Welcome to the show. For those of you that don't know, if you're new here, first of all, if you're new here, let us know you're new here in the chat. Put hashtag new or first time or whatever you want, really. But welcome to the show. This is Tuesday Unfiltered. I'm Ken, and I think we have a great show every week, but I'm excited tonight to talk to Nick Chewy Hanson from Minnesota, running for Minnesota House District 9A. So we're going to talk to him, find out what's going on with his campaign, how things are going in Minnesota. And, Barry, I know, man. I know. Always out of competing with the Brewer game. I mean, they play 5 times a week, right? So they play 5 times a week, but, yeah. I really, Barry, this is what I hope, man. I hope that this year, it's not like every other year with baseball in Wisconsin, that we have a very good season and then we just crap out in the playoffs in the postseason. We do it every year. October is always a heartbreak in Wisconsin. So, but what's up, everybody? I see Kyle or Kratos. What's up, Kratos? Mal's here. What's up, Mal? Good to see you. Bacon. What's up, brother? Good to see you. C. Kato. Thanks for being here. Appreciate you. Dean from Minnesota. What's up, Dino? Good to see you, brother. Hope you're doing well. Alyssa's here. Good to see you, Alyssa. And Friendly. So good to see you. Hope you're doing well tonight. Cherry's here. And she says, I'm so excited for my bestie, Chewy. Yeah, he's going to be on very, very shortly. Carl. Yeah, we have to pick on Chewy a little bit. We got to pick on Nick a little bit, right? The rivalry uniforms are atrocious. You know, I think one thing we always joke, you and I always joke about, you know, the Packers and the Lions. Now we have I'm assuming is a Vikings fan here with us tonight. But I think we can all agree that the Bears still suck. That we can all agree on. Let's see. Bacon's got he's got his gardening going on. There you go. Agent, what's up? Good to see you. Good to see you. Barry talking about the Brewers game. Yeah, what's the score? What's the score, Barry? We had scored when I came down here to get ready, and I haven't seen it since. So, what's up, Monzy? Good to see you. Good to see you. Daniel Mitchell, welcome in. Says new. So good to have you here. Hope you enjoy the show tonight. Wisconsin does have a team. We have a team. They show up. They show up during the summer and through September, and then normally October we don't have a team anymore. So that's typically how it goes here in Wisconsin. That does explain all the alcohol. That is true. That is true. Oh, gotcha, Bacon. Okay, cool. And here's my favorite. Look, I love every one of y'all in the chat, but this is my absolute favorite. What's up, babe? Primordial Floss, good to see you. What's up? Good to see you. You figured I would pick on him for what, the Vikings? Yeah. Moth Motel says, here for Chewy. What's going on? Good to see you. Yeah, Kratos, we all agree on that. We all agree on that. Carl, I don't know what to say about that, brother. Don't know what to say. Mets up 2-1. Okay. I'm just kidding, Carl. Hope it's all going well, my friend. We got Ohio Custom Rods. What's up, Ohio Custom Rods? Good to see you. Percy, I think I said hello. If not, hello, Percy. It's good to see you. And Scott from the Bearded Coast. What's up, Scott? I want to remind everybody that the Bearded Coast does sponsor these streams. If the button works, there we go. This stream is sponsored by the Bearded Coast at beardedcoast.com if I find the right button. Ken15 saves you 15% off at beardedcoast.com. So if you have a beard, love somebody with a beard, know somebody with a beard, have a family member with a beard, Bearded Coast has what you need there. And if you ever have any questions about beard products, let me know. Always glad to help with that. Oh, Mal, we do. Aren't you a 49ers fan? We do talk about the Bears like that, though. And the Chiefs. We'll talk about the Chiefs also. Absolutely talk about the Chiefs. Considering they lost Super Bowl I, and Cherry, who did they lose to? All right. Yeah, I'm excited for football season. All right, I'm excited for this stream. So let's get through the housekeeping stuff. I do want to point out real quick that we do have the merch store, shop.kensconsin.com. Free domestic shipping on orders over $75. We are live here every Tuesday at 9 p.m. Eastern. So if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, hit that subscribe button. I'll earn it. Make me earn it, but hit that subscribe button. Also, if you haven't hit a like on the stream yet, please do that. That tells YouTube that y'all like what's going on here, and maybe more people will show up. All right, here we go. So let's get to the show. So again, tonight is Nicholas, and I forgot to ask, does he prefer Nick or Nicholas? We'll find out because I want to be respectful. But Nicholas Chewy Hanson with us tonight, running for Minnesota House District 9A, which is over on the west side, the west part of the state. We'll talk about that, where that district is, and what his plans are. Oh, thank you for that reminder, Agent. Don't let me forget that. Make sure you text me and remind me, because my brain's all over the place. Yep. Appreciate you, Ohio Custom Rods. All right, here we go. So let's meet Mr. Hanson here. All right, and here we are. Nick, I want to ask before we go too much further. Do you prefer Nick, Nicholas, Chewy? What should I call you?
Most people, most people probably call me Chewy, but Nick is probably the most common use of my name.
Nick. Okay, cool. I'll make sure to. I want to respect what you like to be called. So I meant to ask you before we went live. So, real quick, it seems like a lot of people here know you already, but for those that don't know, if you don't mind just introducing yourself, letting people know, whatever you want to tell them about you.
Yeah. So my name's Nick Hansen. I live in the mighty metropolis of Kent, Minnesota. Population of 65 people. I've spent the last 11 years doing in sales and industrial and construction, ag sales. But in November, I left my job to run for office. So I'm trying to figure out if I'm having a midlife crisis or making a new start in my life. But I'm from the Minnesota area. I grew up about 30 minutes from where I currently live. Have ventured around the state of Minnesota, but have been here my entire life and couldn't be happier being anywhere else in the U.S.
So let's ask the question because it came up in the chat. I'm assuming you're a Vikings fan. Is that accurate?
Oh yeah, through and through. I'm going to make sure the Vikings are my pallbearers. That way they can let me down one more time when I die.
Hey, even so, I think I saw you in agreement, but like I said, between me, you, we have plenty of Packers fans in the chat. We have Carl, who's a Lions fan. I think we can all agree the Bears still suck. If there's any Chicago fans here, I love you, but yeah.
I think even Chicago fans, well, they're not even in Chicago anymore, so there's that.
Yeah, what's the latest? I guess they are going to go to Indiana, so they're going to be the Indiana Bears now, or? Oh man. All right. So, we're going to get into everything about your run in Minnesota. So we'll go to the Ballotpedia map here in a minute. Before we get into the whole nitty gritty of politics though, I want to talk first about some fun stuff, right? Some random facts. Those of you that have never been here before, we do some random facts about, the candidate, just to kind of get to know on a more personal level before we start talking about what politics can be depressing. They're fun to talk about, but they can be, politics are politics, right? But let's learn a little bit about Nick first.
I'ma talk back in the who that, we that, who that, we that, who that, take a picture, baby, let me step back. Who that, we that, who that, we that, who that, take a picture, baby, let me step back.
All right. Mal, aren't you from, well, I don't want to say where I think you're from, just in case you don't want me to, but I'm seeing all the Chicago teams in the chat there. Are you a Chicago full lacrosse fan there, Mal? All right. So some random facts about Nick before we get into the fun stuff. All right. So the first one was a section champion and state entrant in wrestling. Awesome. So tell us about that. And section, I'm not familiar with what division or what term that really relates to. So.
Section is basically the step before state. So if you win you have to place top 2 in your section to enter the state tournament.
Okay. So tell us about that. When was this?
This would have been in 2005. So, just a couple years ago. But I won the section 7A heavyweight championship. I beat the 11th ranked heavyweight in state, who was the heavily favored person to win the section. Me and him had a rivalry my entire varsity career. The first time we ever wrestled, I beat him. Every other time before that last time we faced each other at the section championship, he beat me, and then I pinned him at the section championship.
Nice. I'm trying to move the thing here real quick. I had it in a different spot last week because their camera was a little bit smaller. So let's change that. Okay. Just so that's not flying over your face. Awesome. So I'm assuming you wrestled going all the way back through high school and all that.
I've been wrestling since elementary school. So I switched schools when I was younger. I started in Fergus Falls School District. My dad was a psychiatric nurse at the Fergus Falls Regional Treatment Center, which was a big state hospital. It's kind of famous if you look up the Kirkbride Tower in Fergus Falls. It's very historic place. He worked up there for years, but then we moved further out in the country, and I switched to a little town called Underwood. And that was actually made up 3 different towns for wrestling. So I was part of the Ottertail Central Bulldogs, and I was varsity wrestler my sophomore, junior, and senior year.
That's awesome. Nice. I never got into wrestling. I played football in high school. Wasn't good enough to go past high school, but no, it's awesome. All right. So let's see. So Cherry says, Connor says, hi, Uncle Chewy.
Tell him I'll play some better things next time.
Bacon says, I wrestled in 7th grade, didn't win a single match. That probably would have been me also. I was a football player, so, we're a little more clumsy. We just try to knock things down. I don't think that really works in wrestling. And 2446 Rules says, go U-Town.
U-Town? One of the cool kind of things on the wrestling thing. So I went to a wrestling camp between my senior and junior year. And I got to wrestle Brock Lesnar.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't like a live wrestling match. He was, there showing us the stuff, but I'm 6'4", I was 6'4", 250 at the time, and like that man just made me feel small. Like his hand just eclipsed mine. I wear a 2XL glove, and his hand just like enveloped mine. Dude just had massive mitts.
He is a huge guy. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I'm supposed to ask you about your arm bars. I don't know what this is.
So, for the people that know MMA, so post high school, MMA for me was when it was like really big. That was like the Tito Ortiz kind of era. But I used to intoxicate myself occasionally and then decide to challenge my friends to MMA slap matches. But there was one, my buddy agreed to it, and I had him locked in an armbar, and he didn't know what tap out means.
So what happened? I'm assuming you eventually just let him go, or what?
No, luckily, I was screaming maybe a couple of things at him, telling him to tap out, and he doesn't know what it means. Someone that realized what was going on came over and started tapping him. That's why I let him go, because there's a picture of it out there. You can see his arm starting to hyper. I was locked in a pretty deep.
Well, I'm glad somebody took care of him. Daniel Mitchell says, hi, Chewy. It's Grandpa Danny. And
hey, Grandpa Danny.
Yeah. All right. So next up, we have you restore classic cars. So that's cool. I'm unrelated. I'm thinking about buying an old classic truck, trading my truck in for something older that's easier to work on. But anyway, so what do you like to work on?
I work on pre-80s mostly. I do some fuel injection, but my pride and joy is my 67 Camaro. I'm currently building a new engine for that. There's going to be a little bit of car talk, so for everyone else that goes over his head, my 67 had a 327 small block. I'm building a 350 to put into it. Put flat top pistons on it. Little aggressive cam, new head, 750 CFM carb, high flow intake. So I'm hoping to push about 450 to the wheel.
Nice. Real quick, so Shaquille Oatmeal says she wrestled in middle and high school, was the first female in West Virginia to wrestle, and she was a state champ a few times. That's awesome.
Yeah, no,
really cool.
Women's wrestling has come a huge way since, back when I was in high school, they didn't even have separate divisions. So you barely saw high school level female wrestlers. They've expanded that now here in Minnesota, but other states had it. But I got my daughter to do 1 year of wrestling, but we found out she does not have the same, so we say instincts out on the mat that her father did. So when someone threw a headlock at her, she was deer in headlights look.
Not her thing, huh? Not her thing. All right, so last up we have you're an avid hunter and sportsman, and your favorite game meat is antelope. Now, I like this one when I saw this because I've eaten a lot of stuff, a lot of different types of meat. I've never actually had antelope, so you have to tell me about that. Like, what's it most closely? What's the taste like, or whatever? But
It's kind of a mix between venison and elk. If anyone's had it, but it also has like almost. It is one of the least gamey game meats out there for people that don't like wild game meat because they always like, oh, it tastes gamey. For whatever reason, it cooks so well, and it just works great for burger, anything else. But you cut a antelope steak up, and it just so good. Probably followed by elk for me, and then I mostly grew up on venison in Minnesota and bear.
I've had bear. Yeah, Agent says I'm intrigued by antelope. Yeah, I've never actually had antelope. Yeah, meat is meat, gamey or not. And every meat, like, there's just a different way to prepare it to take out that gamey taste. Cherry says you can eat an antelope. Oh yeah, you can eat pretty much anything. Like, what's the strangest or most obscure thing that you've ever eaten, Chewy?
I've done. If you can hunt it in North America, I've probably eaten it. I've done gator, boar, elk, moose, venison, bear, grizzly, and black bear. It's not North American delicacy, but fried grasshoppers.
Yeah, I've never had that either.
It's crazy. Like I went to a place and they just fry them up in like a giant wok with oil, and they just crunch, and surprisingly it works somehow. I don't know how. Like in my head it was terrible, but I was like, I popped them in, crunched them, and I'm like, that actually wasn't bad. I'm kind of scared right now.
I'll never know. That one I'll never know. I've eaten. I've had snake, turtle. Rabbit, of course. I used to go out for frog legs all the time. I go out and hunt frogs, frog gigging, come back and eat the legs. Yeah, I've eaten all kinds of crazy stuff too.
Well, you're from the latchkey generation too, aren't you, Ken?
What's that?
You're from the latchkey generation.
You can say that. My childhood was something different, but yeah, you can say that. I'm from the generation of Southern conservative. My mother was not always awake. I'll just put it that way.
God. Yeah, my parents were divorced, but there was a lot of times in my early elementary days, at least, I'd get off the bus, and it was usually about an hour and a half, 2 hours before my dad would get done with work. So my favorite go-to snack was I'd go grab my pellet gun and I'd go pop a squirrel or two, and I would fry it up in the pan, waiting for him to come home to cook dinner.
Yep, I've eaten squirrel before. We have all kinds of stuff in the chat now. And Dean's got a great point with beef prices. Yeah, we have to start eating whatever we can find, I guess. So we have groundhog. I've never had groundhog.
That one I haven't.
Carl says cottonmouth. I haven't had cottonmouth. I've eaten rattlesnake. I think rattlesnake is the most common snake that people eat. Iguana I've never had. Bacon says iguana. No, Agent. No, you can keep the mealworms. I'm not trying that either. Bacon. Yeah. Everybody eats vegetables, right? Everybody has vegetables from time to time. That was terrible. That was a terrible joke. Yeah, no, Percy. Yeah. Childhood favorite, frog legs. Yeah. I used to eat them all the time. Squirrel. Yeah. Yep. This right here, bacon. Yeah. We're on the same page. If it came from a can and had a government label on it, that was my childhood. So, all right. Well, yeah, Cherry, I hear that was a spur of the moment joke. But I will say I'm not the first one to come up with that joke, so I didn't make that up. All right, so let's get into to what we're talking about here. So first of all, I want to go to, because we were talking about this before the show, where you are. So for those that don't know, the district that Nick is running for is basically the most furthest edge of Minnesota here, south of Fargo, and on the other side, of course, into Minnesota. But down here, there's Fergus Falls. Looks like it might be the biggest area there. Chew, you want to talk for a minute about this district and kind of, I don't know, what the makeup is there?
Yeah, sure. So, my district is 3 full counties. So it's Wilkin, Grant, and Traverse counties, and then the western part of Ottertail County. Ottertail County there is what has Fergus Falls, Pelican Rapids. Those are probably the 2 biggest there. And Fergus Falls is the biggest block, and that's where I was born, and that's the biggest block. I have to win. Like Fergus Falls, the town has more people in it than Grant and Traverse counties combined.
Yeah, I've never. So those of you that know Minnesota, that's Bacon. That was going to be my next question, because I was intrigued when you just said the town I think you said the town you live in now, the population is 65. I thought I lived in a small town of 8,000. So 65.
Yeah. So Fergus is the biggest town in it, 14,000.
Okay. All right. So so that's
Fergus is right on the edge of what they call lakes country, as you can probably see, just east of there, all the lakes. That's why they call it lakes country.
Yeah.
It's a big tourist area.
All right. So, and we were talking before, I mean, pretty conservative on that side of Minnesota. We were talking about your, I forget his name now, but the guy you're running against, Jeff Backer. Yeah. So how's it going? I mean, you're getting out and talking to people. What are you hearing from people on the ground there as far as how they think things are going in Minnesota?
I mean, obviously the biggest thing right now in Minnesota, no matter what side of the aisle you're on, has been the fraud doc, because it got blown way out of proportion. After that Nick Shirley video went viral where he was lying through his teeth and everything, and then the government put out their initial number was the total amount of federal dollars we had gotten, and they said that was what the fraud was worth, and we're like, no, that's our total dollars we've gotten, and everything came in less than that. And then, like, you still look at Texas and Florida, they have higher rates of fraud. Actually, as far as fraud goes, our most of the Midwest states, period, are much lower on the fraud scale than the rest of the U.S.
Yeah.
And then, they had obviously all of the racist rhetoric with, that it was all Somali people and stuff like that. And that was just horrible. Especially when it was a whole ass white woman that started the whole thing.
I was going to say, I was trying to think of her name, but wasn't it a white woman that was at the root of all of it?
Yeah. Something, I'm totally spacing her name now that I brought it up to you.
Yeah, I can't think of it either.
That and the fact that we'd already tried it, and I mean, it was well out there before any of it came out there, and then they tried to bring it up, and I went to a legislative recap that my opponent held, and that was exactly what they were trying to, lay at the feet of Democrats, that, oh, well, it's all their fault. And I'm like, you've been there since 2014. Tell me you didn't do anything.
Yeah, Amy Bach is her name.
Amy Bach. Yeah.
Amy Bach. Yep. Yeah. What's up, everybody that's popped in? Tara, good to see you. She says hi to all my friends. Queen, good to see you. Mrs. Hammer here. Good to see everybody. Make sure I didn't miss anybody. All right. Yeah. So, all right. So let's talk about your platform a little bit. So, one of the first things I noticed about your platform is you have a central piece of your platform that you call "Our Tax Dollars Coming Back to Us," right? Again, I don't know a lot about Minnesota. What I do know is like Minneapolis, right? Everybody knows like the bigger cities. So, from my understanding, Greater Minnesota kind of sees most of its tax base pulled into, basically massive metro area projects. You're talking about a town of population of 65 and would you say 14,000 or whatever for Fergus Falls?
Yep.
So what's your plan when you say our tax dollars coming back to us? What does that mean to you? What does that mean for Minnesota?
Yeah. So a big part of it is obviously the metro districts make up the vast majority of both the House and the Senate because that's where the population centers are. But that's not where our entire tax revenue. I mean, the agriculture industry, the recreation industry, a lot of what happens out in Greater Minnesota puts a lot of money in there. And one of the things I will always make the argument of is the products that do get manufactured down there, they get shipped out on the roads that go through my counties. Our products that are made here that they consume go through our counties to get down there. Like we need to make sure like infrastructure spending and that happens. One of the big things, not just in Minnesota, but across the U.S. as a whole, obviously, is housing shortages. And one of the big arguments I make is it's much cheaper to invest in some of our rural communities to allow them to grow, creating starter homes, expanding them, and then allowing people to commute to these, larger cities. Like my town's a perfect example. There's, I think about half the people work in the Fargo-Moorhead area, 30-minute drive. So it's a great shot for us, but you can have all of the quote unquote niceties of living in, small town rural America. We have easy access to a couple of different nearby schools. We have hospitals, and like those are the things that I really want to focus on making sure that we maintain and fund, because we do see when rural schools and hospitals close down, like that's a death blow to a community. Once they lose a school, once they lose a hospital, people move out of there. You're not going to get a family that wants to come in and start in a town that they can't have their children go to school at, where they can't, if they have an emergency, they can't, if they have to drive an hour to get to the nearest hospital, they don't want that, especially as a new parent, because that's the thing you're most terrified if something happens to your kid.
Yeah.
I can hack my leg off. I don't care. My kid falls and scrapes a knee, I'm freaking out.
Yep. I'm a parent just like you. Yeah, we know that. We have to be close to and know exactly how quickly the best route to get to that hospital. And that's part of, not even just Minnesota, right? But across the country, especially the big, beautiful bill, the biggest cuts are supposed to take effect next year. We're going to see, if something doesn't change, we're going to see hospitals closing. And those rural areas you're talking about, those are the worst. They're going to be the hardest hit areas. So when you think about those rural, I can never say that word, just so you know, I always fail on that word, but you know what I'm saying? When you talk about those areas, and you mentioned, of course, most of the representation is in more of the metro areas. When you get to the Minnesota House, kind of what's your plan to make sure that your district gets a fair share of that?
So I will have kind of a disproportionate effect. For those that aren't familiar, this year, the Minnesota Senate had a 1-seat Democratic majority and the House was evenly split 50-50. So like if we were to go the same, but we flipped the House, I flipped my House seat, all the rest of the seats stay the same. We now have a 1-seat majority. But if the Democrats want to pass anything, they need me to sign off. So I go like healthcare, 100%. I want good healthcare. 40% of that bill goes to Greater Minnesota. I will, I'm going to draw, the proverbial lines in the sand. And that's one of the things I think is missing most about representation, especially the rural Republicans, even if they are on board with it. So, for example, obviously the big beautiful bill came out, which is gutting healthcare. Minnesota preemptively started funding some of that. We had a crisis down at the Hennepin Medical Center, which is the free clinic down in the Twin Cities area. But there was also funding for rural hospitals to help fund a lot of the access and care, cover that, because they knew that a lot of our small rural communities were going to be losing dollars from the Medicaid and Medicare cuts. So we started doing that, but Lisa Damuth, who's currently she was the Republican House leader, and she's running for governor now. She told the Republicans that's all we're going to allow in the bill. So she actually cut it off the knees. The Democrats actually wanted to put more in for rural spending, and at least Damon's, a Metro Republican, but all the other country, rural, greater Minnesota Republicans, they didn't stand up for their communities, including my own, when that was happening. They said 100% they voted for it, but they didn't stand up for their communities and go, hey, if we're voting for this, we want to make sure our hospitals are fully covered. But they fell in line under leadership, and that's one of the things I hate about the duality, the binary of the political system. For those that have known me, seen me do my like TikTok debates and stuff, I used to be a very avid about having a third party, and I still promote things like ranked choice voting, term limits, and things like that I think would open up more for third party and give strength to it. Also, including repealing the electoral college, but that's more national, obviously. But even at the state level, I think we need that.
I'll say real quick, it looks like we may have a little Chewy in the chat, so I'll watch my language. But she says, "Hey, Dad." He or she, I'm not sure. Sorry.
Oh yeah, that's my little girl.
Nice. We heard all about you.
YouTube channel of her. She has her own YouTube channel with 2,000 followers, so she's more cool than her old man.
Nice. Well, that's what we want for our kids, right? We want them to be cooler than us. So good job. All right. So we talked about healthcare a little bit. And on that, let me go back up to, so Shaq says, exactly what you're saying is happened in West Virginia. Are you saying that a hospital closed there? I mean, we know it's coming, but did that happen today? Did one actually close? So anyway, so talking about healthcare, from my understanding, you advocate for expanding public coverage options, allowing small businesses to buy into like state level. You may have to explain it to me a little bit, but you want small businesses to be able to buy into some sort of like state level health risk pools. What's your plan there?
So what we currently have is called MN Care, and that's the public option that's for like low income families that the state funded. And I want to open that up for individuals and small businesses, and that would be a huge boost for rural communities like me, because like you look at all those farmers and stuff, they're out there paying on the private market, and they're they don't have employee sponsored covering part of it. They're paying full price for those coverage plans. And then anyone that understands how the insurance work, it's all about pool size. The more people that are in the pool, the cheaper it is for everyone. So like putting it in on that public option will decrease the cost. And then you're also cutting out the middlemen, CEOs and all that are making the decisions, back when they did the Affordable Care Act and they were talking about death panels and all that. And I'm like, if you've not seen a CEO boardroom, that's the death panel. Those are the people that say, hey, our profits mean more than these people. And like that was, even though I wasn't a hardcore Democrat back in the day, that was definitely one of the things I was like, no.
Yeah, some of the stuff that we hear talking about the death panels and stuff, it's wild to me. One thing that I'm going to talk about probably tomorrow, like on TikTok or something, is some of the Fox News. I actually binged several Fox News TikToks today, and I did that because they had Abdul Al Sayed. Jesse Waters interviewed him, and so I was watching all of those. So I had kind of schooled him a little bit. I'm surprised he posted all those, but I'm going to talk about that. But the stuff that you hear from these people about some of these bills and some of these things is just wild. Some of the rumors out there about these things. So this model of healthcare that you're talking about, we talk about like rural hospitals, the smaller hospitals closing. How will that have any effect on hopefully being able to save some of those hospitals?
Yeah, because obviously, like when you have like low income, you have the farmers, and you have better access for the affordable healthcare. People are going to use it. I mean, like that's what flows money into our hospitals. Like,
right.
When you don't have either affordable coverage or have no coverage at all, you only go in when it's quote unquote dire. You're not going in for your annual checkups. You're not going in. Like, oh, I got bronchitis. I know I should probably go in and get, some meds, but my body will eventually fight it off, and we just sit there and be miserable and fight through it because, hey, we can't afford to go into eat a doctor bill this month, and like that means those doctors aren't getting paid for those visits that they otherwise would, and then they start cutting services. Like one of the big issues with my area is we're in a maternity desert, because there's so few places that have like full OBGYN birthing centers. So that's not available at every single hospital in my area. So sometimes you are traveling an hour, 2 hours away if you want to have a child. And like, again, that kind of falls back into the why am I going to raise a family if I can't have my children near my community?
Yeah, Minnesota sounds a lot like Wisconsin in the fact that, I mean, Wisconsin, obviously we have Milwaukee, we have Madison, you know, there's Green Bay, which is not a big town, but it's for Wisconsin standards, it's kind of a big town. But then, you know, it's mostly like a lot of small towns, especially the further up north you go, right? Minnesota sounds like that also. I guess outside of Minneapolis, it's mostly, you know, those small towns. Like, what's the furthest, if you know, you may not know this and that's okay, but what are some of these hospital travel times for some people like in the most remote areas of Minnesota?
You get up north, like I said, it's anywhere from an hour and a half to 2 hours for the basic hospital/clinic, and that doesn't even necessarily, that might just be your like emergency care.
Right.
Again, that like doesn't cover like any kind of specialty or anything like that. Even for me, so I'm not too far away from the Fargo Moorhead, but like a lot of specialists, I would have to go up to the Fargo Moorhead area. I was seeing an endocrinologist. So one of the bad things about my growing up in sports is as everyone that knows that did football, wrestling, all that, concussions weren't talked about very much when we were a kid. So
Right.
when I got my bell rung all the times in high school, I didn't think anything of it. And then through my like late 20s into my early 30s, I struggled with weight, energy, all kinds of things. And then I went in and they did a full blood panel, and they were like, your testosterone's really low. And I'm like, okay. And then they tested a few years later, and it was plummeting. And then we finally went to an endocrinologist, and they realized my pituitary gland actually in puberty stopped functioning.
Oh.
So it wasn't producing anything. So the gonads is the only thing producing testosterone in my body. And I literally just had to go in. They figured that out. I took some meds, and then all of a sudden my pituitary gland kicked back on. And I just basically had to get it to restart. And then all of a sudden, like, hey, don't have to go through all these health issues that were, again, related to all these health issues because my pituitary gland wasn't functioning, which brought my testosterone down. And everyone's like, just lose weight, you'll be fine. I'm like, no, there's a reason I'm constantly tired, fatigued, and are having all these issues that I didn't have when I was younger.
Yep. That's, so that's interesting. I don't know the condition, but it's just not funny, but when you say the pituitary gland kicked back on, that's interesting to me. I'll put it that way, I guess. So do you have to travel now for that? Is that like an ongoing thing, or are you good now?
I'm good now. So the weirdest thing is the medication I took is actually used for women to help them conceive, but it naturally gets your hormones to kick on, so that's how it works in men to like get their pituitary gland to jumpstart itself. Because essentially, from what I understood is that, you know, I'm obviously using very layman term here because I'm not going to say I'm anywhere near endocrinologist level of
Sure.
But essentially, it protects itself from the TBI. It stopped functioning, and then once it got that restart, it went back to completely normal. And I went from having, for anyone that knows, you're supposed to be between like 300 to 600 like nanograms of testosterone. I was at 120.
Oh, yeah.
So I wasn't on the low side. I was outside of the healthy human male range. So I took that, and all of a sudden I was up into the mid 400s where I should have been the entire time. I mean, obviously it does decrease as you get older, but it not falls off the chart like that. So
Yeah.
that made a big difference in a lot of health issues I was having.
I'm glad you got that taken care of, because most most men, that's like a taboo subject to talk about, right? Most men won't get something like that checked out. And men, get things checked out. Go get your annual screenings. Make sure you know where your numbers are. Get your your blood work done, because all that stuff matters. All right.
Very much.
Yeah, so good plans for healthcare and hospitals. I'm assuming, obviously we talk about this kind of stuff. I mean, where do you stand on a fully, public healthcare option, going to more of a universal healthcare model?
That's basically kind of what I want to show that if we do it here in Minnesota and it works, and that it works in rural Minnesota, it works for companies, and I want to use my state as the base model. Be like, hey, we've seen all these other countries do it. We've seen what works and doesn't work. Let's implement that. Use the technology that's out there to streamline the systems and run everything and make sure everyone has affordable coverage. We eliminate high deductibles, and you just pay your monthly, and you go in and you do what you have to do. You don't worry about it beyond that. Because that's the other thing, is half the people that have insurance, but they are still afraid to go in until they hit their deductible, because I have to pay $5,000 out of pocket before anything's covered, and people can't afford that.
Yeah, I mean, look, so I'll give you a little personal story, even with the deductible, right? Like we hit our deductible, I don't know, sometime last month before. My wife had some MRIs done this past Friday on her back, and so we're at our deductible, which means we're now in the copay range because we have a couple more thousand until we're out of the out-of-pocket maximum for the year. So even after hitting our deductible, which is $5,500 for the year with our plan, we still have to pay, $2,000 for these MRIs because of copays. It's ridiculous what we spend on health insurance. And I talk about this all the time. Obviously it comes up during these streams, and I talk about it on social media, but there is no reason why we as a country cannot go to universal healthcare. We have the biggest advantage over any other country that has it, which we're the only one that doesn't for civilized countries, right? There's no reason why we shouldn't have it here. Everybody would spend less. But yeah, something like and I've heard of other states doing this. Like I've got a petition going trying to get Wisconsin to do something similar to what you're talking about, so that we can also show the U.S. like, hey, this is possible. I heard that they did it recently out somewhere on the East Coast. I forget what state now. Maybe somebody in the chat remembers. Maybe Massachusetts.
I was going to say, I think it's Massachusetts.
Yeah.
Massachusetts or Connecticut, maybe.
Yeah. And agent, I'm going to ban you. I'm just kidding. Funny story. So, I had my VA appointment, my annual VA physical last week. And apparently they moved the age for colonoscopies from 50 to 45. And I just recently turned 45. So the VA doctor was like, hey, we recommend this now. Do you want to have it done? And I was like, no, but it's important. So yeah, let's do it. So the Milwaukee VA called me a couple of days ago to schedule that. And the lady on the phone, she said, well, I'm assuming you don't want to do this the day before Christmas, right? I was like, yeah, no, I'd prefer not to. So January it is, but yeah, that's coming up. So take care of yourself, everybody. Oh yeah, no, Cherry, she's good. This goes back to her Army injury. Her back has gotten worse. So she hurt her back when she was in the Army, and it was just I would say checkup. It's gotten worse, so they're just she's got doctors looking at her back again. So, all right, so let's move on and talk for just a few minutes about constitutional rights, because you, of all people, live in Minnesota. I mean, I think for all the stuff we've seen for the last, year and a half, Minnesota has kind of been in my mind, really the forefront of where a lot of the worst of this has happened, right? We talk about just constitutional rights being taken. So you've talked about constitutional protections belong equally to everyone, and that rights should not be cast aside, right? And we know right now, like this political climate we're in right now is so polarized because of all the different things that are going on and the rhetoric and the talk from the right. So being that the climate is so polarized, and we mentioned you live in a highly conservative area, how do you defend and fight for those core civil liberties when these partisan games kind of derail, actual policy?
One of the biggest things is just bringing up the fact that it is constitutional protected, because like a lot of people don't do it. They will say they support the Constitution, but they probably have never read it in their life.
Yep.
Other than at least the Second Amendment around here. And even then they still don't know how it actually works, but that's a story for another day. But the Constitution says people and persons. It doesn't, it's non-binary, it's non-racial, it's not, there's nothing, it describes all people. It doesn't even say citizens, all people.
Yep.
That's what our Bill of Rights is based on. And that's what I make the argument for when people, start saying, obviously when ICE came to Minneapolis, they didn't just hit Minneapolis. There is a town near me that has very high immigrant population. Most of them are U.S. citizens, been here for years, but they were still in fear because ICE was going through the community. They were stopping in at the local turkey plant, pulling people out of their cars. They'd disappear them, and then they'd come back, drop them off after they confirmed they were citizens. But you don't want to go out and get thrown in the back of a vehicle and not know what happened. You don't want to send your family out, your kids out. So I worked with a group that was, helping make sure food got out to people that were afraid to go out. We saw businesses stutter because there was no one going out, or they were had run by people of, brown skin. So they were afraid, even though they were born here, lived here their entire lives, they were afraid they're going to be targeted. And because they were, we saw it time and time again. I mean, we're fighting right now with our attorney general to sue Texas because Texas won't send the border patrol agent that lied and shot through a door at a man after he said he hit him with a shovel. We found out that wasn't true when they found security cam footage from down the street. And that's what we've been facing. We have a government that is literally lying to us and trampling over our rights. And people are like, well, we shouldn't count them. I'm like, if you are willing to step on their rights, you're willing to sell your own rights. And that's something we can't break on. Like one for me, like I always say, as much as I'm a huge constitutionalist, and one of the hardest ones I have is actually cruel and unusual punishment. Everyone's like, why is that one? I'm like, for anyone that is a survivor of childhood sexual act, you have a different, bring them back out behind the woodshed and take care of them kind of mentality. Being a survivor of that, that is the hardest one, because I really do want to say that, but I also am even though those people are disgusting and don't deserve the rights that are given to them, I know if I were to shred it for that breaks it for that one group, then it's the next group, because when you make an exception for one group, it opens the door for that next group and that next group, where you can say, well, these people don't count. Well, if we're not going to include them, we don't have to include this person, and it's a snowball effect. And when you trade freedom for security, I believe it was Benjamin Franklin said, if you're willing to trade, I'm paraphrasing, trade freedom for security, you deserve neither, and you'll have
neither. Yep. Yeah, I mean, going back to what you started that with, that's something I talk about all the time. The people who talk the most about they love the Constitution. We're talking about the people on the right. Most of the ones, especially that I come across on social media, they've never read it. So I've gotten to where I'm just reading it to them. When something comes up that's on that topic of the Constitution, I just friggin' read it to them at this point, because it's probably the first time they've ever actually heard it read. I don't know if you follow Brett Cross on social media. Yeah. His son was one of the kids in Uvalde. One of his questions he asks every time somebody comes up is, what are all the 27 words of the Second Amendment? And nobody ever knows. They know shall not be infringed. That's pretty much what the part they know. It bugs me to death whenever the topic of the Constitution comes up in the content that I do, and you're arguing with people who have never read the Constitution, but they have such a big opinion about it. just read it. It's short. You can read it in an hour, right? It may take you longer than that to really learn what it says, but you can literally sit down and read the entire thing in an hour. So, on this, so Carl's asking, which stance of the Constitution are you, an originalist or a living constitutionalist?
I'm very much living. I believe that you look at how it was written, even some of the language used in its beginning. So for those that aren't familiar, like the abolitionist movement started technically before we became a country. So you look at that happening, and that's why a lot of people believe they use the term people and persons, because they wanted to open that up for the enslaved people of the time, because there was a lot of talk, but the South didn't want to, give that up. And then Thomas Jefferson, people have their opinions on him. Obviously, he did a lot of horrible things to his enslaved people, but he even struggled with the question of how can we say all people are free if we're not truly letting all people be free? For if you would dive deep into it, you can read the Federalist and the Anti-Federalist papers. I even have a book on all of the letters Jefferson wrote to Madison and Marbury, where they were having talks about it, and you see them break down a lot of the topics that are in the Constitution, where they were talking about firearms and stuff. And a lot of people think it was designed for an individual right, when technically more of a state right. They wanted to make sure that the federal government couldn't take away the state militia's weapons, because that's what the British tried to do, is they tried to take the militia weapons, because they were all stored in armories back in the day. My concealed carry weapons was Springfield Armory, Hellcat. Springfield Armory was Washington's Armory, George Washington's Armory, So that's not, again, not knowing your history. History was one of my favorite subjects, so that probably helped.
Yeah, same here. I just want to point out because, ex-wife here just wanted to tell you your dad would be proud. I don't know if you want to talk about that. Was he in politics or?
So where I probably got beaten into my head about the Constitution, my dad was a hardcore libertarian.
Nice. Got it.
And it changed to a lot of I struggle with a lot of views. So I've done a lot of deconstruction through my life. I was not the person I am now in my childhood by any stretch, or in my teens. But I remember a lot of the things when I was on the wrong side of things. Surprisingly enough, my dad was the one that would always use the argument of when gay rights, marriage equality, and all that were coming up, and he's like, "You tell me, government has no effing right to tell people who they can and can't love." That was the libertarian. I mean, before Democrats were on that was a libertarian talking point. Government doesn't have a right to tell you who you can marry. Government doesn't have a right to who you can worship. That was obviously, I don't go in the extremes of where we are anarcho libertarianism, where they believe no government, but I still hold quite a bit of we should infringe on personal freedoms the least amount. But I believe that there is aspects of the federal government that is you. I mean, when you talk self-defense and things like that, yes, military, roads, infrastructure that is where the government, because that has such a wide breadth. And I make the argument for healthcare. Falling back to I brought up the Affordable Care Act. One of the things they said in the Affordable Care Act, well, let's just open up state lines so there's more people in these pools. What does federalizing it do? It creates a nationwide pool. You can't get any bigger than that pool. That is the best way to drive down the insurance costs. I don't want to pay for someone else's health care. You have health insurance, guess what? You're paying for someone else's health care. That's the idea of insurance. Everyone puts into a pool and you pull from it when you need. You're not pulling your money out. You're pulling someone else's money out when you're sick.
Yep. I'm with you on that one. I hate it when I hear them say, I don't want to pay for somebody else's healthcare. You're doing it right now. You're already doing that. You're paying more. We're all paying more for other people's healthcare and our own than we would be if we had universal healthcare. It'd be so much cheaper. But they won't accept that because they're stuck on that. I'm not paying for somebody else's healthcare, and they will not grasp the fact that they're already doing that. I can tell that bugs you, and it bugs me too. I hate when they say that. Yeah.
Well, I mean, like I said, when we first kind of got to know each other, Ken, I joked around that I watched your videos for so long, but I just struggled following you because I'm like, Wisconsin, man, I don't know. That's how bad the Vikings Packers rivalry.
Right there, yeah. I always go the wrong way on the camera, but yep. No, hey, look, it's funny on social media, people come across and they're like, hey, first time that I've agreed with a Packers fan or, whatever. And my answer to that is always like, look, there's plenty of time for football, but there's always things that are more important than that also. So, yeah. But when football season comes around, I'm going to talk some smack to you. Well, I promise you that.
There we go. There we go.
Yeah. All right, let's talk a little bit about conservation, clean air, clean water. I mean, again, Minnesota and Wisconsin are kind of similar in outdoors and conservation. Minnesota, land of 10,000 lakes. I would argue Wisconsin has more lakes, but that's just a fun debate. But anyway, land of 10,000 lakes.
Go down that if you want to.
It's always a fun debate, right? But let's just say between the two of us, we have a butt ton of states or lakes. So when we talk about conservation policies and protections, obviously the DNR in Wisconsin's huge. I'm assuming it is in Wisconsin also, and the different ways that they try to conserve nature. But where do we draw the line when we talk about policy and that? Where do we draw the line between sensible conservation protections and then regulations that may burden, say, local farmers, sportsmen, and property owners?
Yeah. So, I mean, we have a pretty good blend right now in Minnesota. Like, there's some things that make arguments that where we just need to go by science. So, like, usually the Democrats are all like, I'm all about the science, and but then, like, if science says, hey, you can't spray this chemical within 50 yards of a waterway or it's going to leak in, and it's like, okay, perfect, 50 yards. Well, then they'll write legislation. Well, let's be safe. We'll go twice that. And now you're going to have a farmer that says, well, you're taking away that extra 50 yards of, that's 4 rows of crops that I can't plant now. And then you're going to have the Republicans say, well, they'll go to the extreme opposite, where they'll go like, well, then we should just have no regulations if we can't, find regulations that work. And that's like that. What I feel like derails a lot of time is you have the people that overreact, and go to the extreme. Like if science shows us where it works, and I mean, obviously, like, and when science gets better, because that's the cool thing about science, is it's constantly improving itself because you're constantly researching. So if we go, hey, initial says 50 yards, well, now we find out underground ground seepage, things like that. We do need to go to 75 yards out. Otherwise, you're going to have, from this water source, or you're going to have like contamination. Perfect. Then we adjust it, but we stick by the science that we know. We don't go to one extreme or the other. We don't do nothing and watch it go to hell. We don't go to one extreme and be like, well, we're going to overregulate it and kill all of the chance for farming or other ability for that land to be utilized for something else.
Yeah, it seems like, and it's funny, I'm going to talk about this on a sort of unrelated topic, but once, just for the chat, once Chewy and I are done here, don't go anywhere because I have my rant, and I'm actually talking about farmers, but not farmers specifically, the fact that Democratic policies over history are better for farmers. And part of that is talking about, regulation, deregulation, which party is better for farmers specifically tonight, but just generally speaking, right? Even on this topic. So my rant's coming up on that. Don't go anywhere. I mean, historically, Democratic policies are better for farmers. We're talking about, farmland in this case. And you and I were talking about that. This is going to get into what I'm talking about after the rant here, or during the rant, but how do you reach, the farmers and for this topic, the outdoorsmen and, hunters and fishermen? How do you reach these people that are overwhelmingly more conservative voters? How do you reach them as somebody that's running on a Democratic ticket to say, hey, look, this is my policy will help you? Like, how do you reach those people?
That's been the biggest part of why, one of the reasons I quit my job is because I knew I had to put the footwork in to be out in front of these people. Because otherwise all they're going to hear is Republican and Democrat talking points. And the Metro Democrats aren't going to bring up anything that's going to help me. They're going to talk about the things that affect their districts, and that's where the vast majority of the Democrats are. Republicans will say they're going to do all of the things to protect 2A and protect farmers, and then do the exact opposite. So I've had to, I got a little campaign car back in February. I just broke 13,000 miles on it, covering my 3.5 counties. I have gone to every single function I can find. I've gone to farm functions. I've interviewed with farmers, and it helped. Again, being from the area, like I grew up with a lot of friends that were farmers. My neighbors were hobby farmers. I mean, I grew up raising animals, hobby farming, chickens, rabbits, horses. Had a cow at one point. Like that. So like I know what happens when you're overstepped on, and like how that feels. And that's what happened. In Minnesota, we're the DFL, the Democratic Farmer Labor Party. It used to be two separate parties, but they came together. And 20, 30 years ago, as they started to win the Metro over, they kind of abandoned the F and the L. Maybe, kind of kept the labor still, carried like the union vote and stuff like that. But they really said, hey, we win the Metro area. We don't have to put all this money and effort and time out into greater Minnesota, because that costs a lot of money when you're talking, again, I'm 3.5 counties for a district, whereas a district in the Metro is 1.5 cities, 10 square miles. So it's harder for them to justify that dollar expenditure, but they, they're doing better about it. I'm working with the rural campaign coordinator who helped organize this year. We have a Democrat for every single House and Senate seat in Minnesota, which is first time in over 100 years that's happened.
Right.
So like they've realized they needed to get back out into greater Minnesota. And one of the people that also helped me, I'm going to kind of give her a shout out here. She's a former, still technically a House rep, but in November she'll be voted out because she ran for the congressional seat, but lost in the primary. Representative Heather Keeler out of Moorhead. And, when I first started this, obviously I went down to the library. They don't make a book on how to run for office. I checked, not there. So he helped me so much as she was the only Democrat in the western side of Minnesota. And Moorhead's not far from me. And when I first kind of started poking around and going to things and kind of, making a little bit of noise that I was interested in this, she came, found me and started, walking me through. She's like, hey, you need to do this. You need to do this. It's going to be hard. This is where you file this. One of the craziest things I had was just trying to find a bank that I could set up a political account in. A lot of banks don't touch them. So I was like, after my third bank I went to where I couldn't even get an account set up, I'm like, what am I doing? And she's like, hey, go to this bank, talk to this person. Got me set up. Because the last bank I'd gone to, they're like, well, until you file, you can't do it. And I'm like, how am I supposed to, I can't file until June. How am I supposed to raise funds between now and then? I'm not going to long hand out and have 40 checks sitting in my lap while I'm writing out all this. Like, we want to talk about fraud concerns in Minnesota. I'm sure that would have gone over well.
Right. Yeah. Look at him with a stack of checks. What's their reasoning for that? Is it campaign finance laws, or what? Is that what makes them not want to?
There's a little bit of that. And then one of the reasons I also had an issue is I don't go through traditional banks. I had two accounts. Both were different credit unions, one from my hometown and one where I'm at now. And credit unions being nonprofit, they're really, really careful about that, because if there's any view of partisanship, they can lose their nonprofit status. And, so like I think they're just wary of being involved in that period.
Got it. It kind of makes sense. Their credit unions are a little more strict on a lot of things, even loans and things like that. So yeah, it kind of makes sense, I guess. Yeah, I mean, no, that's great. Knowing how to run anyway, like as much as I talk about politics, I couldn't tell you the first thing about what it would take to actually run, other than just what I've heard from, people like you and others. Um, it's good to have somebody to take you under their wing like that and help you out. And I'm glad that you've gotten out, because I think one of my biggest things that I see is that it just seems like a lot of times, for whatever reason, in Wisconsin especially, it's almost like farmers are not being reached out to. I don't know if it's because candidates think that they're just a shoe-in for the conservatives, for the Republican votes or what, but I think getting out and talking to them is the way to get them to realize that, like, hey, oh, Cherry, I don't know about that. She said, maybe it's time you run. Cherry says, Cohen just walked in, Chewy. He said, hell yeah, dude. And I'm going to throw this question up because it's on the topic that we're talking about. And then I do have some questions saved. If you've asked a question, I do have some saved. We're going to go to a Q&A here shortly. So Agent's asking, would you push to start, going back to the conservation stuff, would you push to start on the further end until the science proves you can move closer?
As much as I would like to say, like, I'm going to be right where everyone wants me. I'm going to go with where we are at today. Even if I have a feeling like it's going to go one way or the other, I think if we're going to set that standard, we have to hold that standard. And that's like, as much as like where I'd be like, I think it's going to go this way. But again, if I'm setting that standard, I have to live by that standard in all aspects. But then, we have to support it at all points in time, because obviously we've seen historically, like the big tobacco that helped stop funding or stop studies from coming out. Oil did the same thing. They knew about pollution long before it got out there. Even the gasoline companies with the leaded fuel back in the day, and all that. Like we have to make sure that we are utilizing it and it's not being suppressed. So there is that concern of it. But again, if we start that standard of we're going by what the current scientific standards are, we have to hold that and not where we think it's going to go. And obviously, and I think it's also important because it shows that legislation period, and kind of going back to the living constitution, that we should constantly be looking at it and changing, because I think that's another thing a lot of, and I would say more so even in states, where like once something gets written in, they just let it ride, and they don't come back and look at it. So one of the things I went around and I talked to like all of our county commissioners and city administrators and doing that, kind of meeting everywhere to kind of see like, hey, what's happening in our communities. And they talked about how we'd set up a standard and they'd be like, oh, hey, we're going to do this green energy switch, which, for me, I'm like, perfect, that's great. Well, they had a coal fire plant and they were going to do the state was basically giving them the offset of what they lost in tax revenue, and a prorated down to kind of, wean off of the money that was being produced by that coal power plant. But it was based off of their housing prices. Well, then the housing prices got up in 2019 and it wiped it out. It was supposed to be for a decade. They had 2 years of it and then it was gone. And it's like, they're like left holding the bag, and they're like, we still don't have the tax revenue just because the house prices went up. It's, cost of living isn't down, they based it off of that, assuming, it follow the same trend. And that was very obviously, we saw that go in two very different directions during the COVID-19.
Right. Makes sense. Yeah, I think sticking to what we know now. Yeah. All right, so I've got one final kind of our unfiltered closer question, but before we do that, there are a few questions from the chat that I would like to put out there. So let's see, I'll save that one for last. So Cherry's asking, what are the top 3 things you would fight to accomplish if elected, and why those 3?
The big 3 for me are probably school, healthcare, and maintaining like our equal rights, because that's one of the things that's been like really under fire here in Minnesota from the Republicans. We're one of the few states that are, quote unquote, a trans refuge state, because we don't have any laws that discriminate against them, because we said, hey, you're a human being. We're not going to debate your humanity. You don't have to. So that's one of the things, like, I want to make sure, like, we stay strong with that and we support that. And then obviously, for my rural communities, but I mean, even the bigger communities, an educated population is a good thing. We want that.
Yes.
And then healthcare, obviously, it's like we can't live without healthcare. And if we lose, those are like three things that I think are like most in danger in my state right now with what's happening at the federal level. And that's one of the reasons why, even at the state level, I think it's important that we have people that are going to step up to make sure that we do things as a state to ride out the storm of the current federal government. Because even if in the midterms they flip the House and the Senate, we're probably going to be looking at best a deadlock for the next 2 years.
Yep.
Damage is done, and we're just going to see more and more damage from that, and then everything's going to be tied up, so we can't reverse any of that. We would have to wait for another, we'd need to hold the House, the Senate, and then get the executive queue in the next presidential election before we can really start making the changes and fix some of the things that have gone horribly, horribly awry in this country.
Yep. What I heard right there was vote. Go vote in November. Take your friends, anybody that's obviously eligible to vote, but take everybody that you know can vote. Make sure they get there. Give them a ride. Whatever you got to do. Make sure that you vote. We cannot sit this one out. All right. So Percy is asking, could you say something about the DFL? And I'm interested in this also because Wisconsin doesn't have anything like this that I'm aware of. I had not heard about it until I saw you at the convention. Also, could you say something about the Constitutional Remedies Act that the DFL proposed?
Yeah, so about the DFL. So the DFL is they're suffering kind of from the same thing that the DNC is, where they're trying to be that big umbrella. And so you do have like a lot of opposing viewpoints, even when you look down the metro, because you see a lot of like the DSA people that are still running more for the Democrats, but you're seeing them try to co-opt DFL events, where all of a sudden it's like literally all the DFL events have DSA events co-opted with them. If you use like a Mobilize app or something like that, they literally just tag it on their own, because they're trying to essentially piggyback off of that to grow them. So, because they think, hey, there's a lot of people that are currently running as DFLers that are more towards our views of socialism and things of that nature. So they're trying to like co-opt that. So we see a lot of that big umbrella energy, and I saw it especially down at the state convention, where you saw a lot of opposing viewpoints from quote unquote same party. And you struggle finding that all of that common ground all the time, and that is probably what's hurting the DFL the most now, is that they are trying to hold on to some things that just aren't pulling everyone in, and they need to like open up to that. You have the old school old guard people that have been in there, and they like this is how we got to do it, this is how we have to run it, and they'll be the ones that say every time too that they need to support down ballot candidates, and they'll say that at the stage down at the state convention, and then as soon as they get the nomination, I haven't like smoke in the wind, they're gone.
Yeah.
And that would be like my biggest like kind of like critique of the DFL and what they're doing. And there's so much splitting, even on agreement on how we go about it, protecting like the constitutionality and like adjusting our state constitution. There's arguments that we need to, because we've made some major changes to our state constitution, and there's some things that aren't in the Constitution that they believe need to be, that we've enacted as state law, but without it being in the state constitution, they'll be like, well, once the winds of change come, you know, all of this progress we've made is lost. Like, especially when you come to like protections of people. Right now we have what would be considered a liberal Supreme Court in the state. So I don't think we would see like a lot of objections, especially when it comes to like protecting human rights, which I think it's crazy we have to argue about protecting human rights.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, how is that a thing we have to argue about? When did arguing about humanity become a thing?
I'm with you. I don't get it.
Unfortunately, it is something that we see, and where, you know, like some people are like, well, we shouldn't touch that, we shouldn't go down that path. But, you know, like part of me is also like, you know, we shouldn't have to enshrine it, but maybe we have to enshrine it. You know, did we really need certain amendments in the Constitution, or were those already guaranteed protections, but then we had to clarify because people are making laws that, you know, when it said all people, all persons, but then we had to make an amendment that, because I'm going to about catch some heat for this. Technically, we never gave an amendment to give women the right to vote. We gave them an amendment, not deny them the right to vote. And I get a little bit of heat with that with some of the people, and I'm like, I understand what you're saying, but if you read it, that's technically how it goes. Like, they said, no, you should have been able to vote all the time, but unfortunately, a bunch of old-ass white dudes were saying you couldn't, and that was actually against the Constitution. But I could probably do an entire lecture series on that. For the people that know me that have known me on the TikTok streets, that used to be my thing. I would bring up case law and go through all that, and even had lawyers like ask me what college I went to, and I'm like, no, dude, I just have severe ADHD, so when I deep dive subjects, I lock in.
Yep, I get it. Yep. You follow, Law of the Wild? You ever talk to him? Good dude, really good dude. I think he's from Minnesota, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
I think he is. Oh yeah, Carl, me too, man. We may have to have another show just to talk Constitution. I really like it. All right, so I'll say real quick on that what you were just talking about. Yeah, Wisconsin's the same. We have a more of a liberal Supreme Court too. The last two elections we've had, or the last 2 years, we've had a Supreme Court nominee up on the ballot, and luckily both times it's gone the correct way. Because what's really up for grabs in Wisconsin right now, the big topic in Wisconsin, is they were really pushing for those more conservative justices because they want to legalize or make abortion illegal here. And luckily the state's like, yeah, no, we need these two women that won the last 2 years. We need these ladies on the Supreme Court because women's rights matter. And luckily that went that way. But I'm with you. It's crazy that we have to have these conversations about human rights. Like this should be just a common thing we all agree on, that human rights matter. All right. So I've got one more question from the chat, and this one I saved for last. Cherry says, I know who you are when the cameras are off. What do you hope voters will see in you that I've had the privilege of seeing as your best friend? So what do you want voters to see in you that they may not see?
The thing I want people to see is I am one of them. I am a guy that grew up here. I hunted like all of them. I grew up kid-ass poor, but always had a meal on the table because my parents made sure that I was fed. Like, I never knew the struggle of money, but until I was older, but I know we struggled the entire time, but they made sure I never knew that. And that's what I think families want. And then I want a better future for tomorrow. I realize, like, I might try to put laws in that won't have an immediate effect, because a lot of laws don't have an immediate effect. But being a girl dad, I want to make sure that my kid grows up in a better world than I did.
Yes. And
that is one of the biggest parts of who I am and what I'm running about. And I will, die on that hill where, and I don't know how men period haven't done that. Like when if you have a daughter, I mean, like Ken, I follow you. I know you have a daughter. I'm hoping you get everything figured out with the cheer thing. That'd be awesome for you all.
Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah.
When I look back at like how I was in high school and stuff, where like it was, you know, quote unquote normal practice to say certain things or do certain things that were derogatory and not great. And I look back and I'm like, I don't want my kid to do that. I'm like, how did our parents not say that? How did our parents' parents not say that? They always said respect women, but then we would do, and other people would do like a lot worse things. Like I'm not trying to say I'm an angel, but you know, I saw some even more obscene things, you know, that are done by other people, and I'm like, as a father, I'm like, how can we let that happen? How? And that's what I want to change.
I'm with you as a girl dad. Yeah. I can't, some of the stuff that we talk about, and I want to be careful how I say this because we pick on the right? There's a lot of things with this president specifically that I'm like, how can you support this man as president, especially if you have a daughter? How can you? There's so much crap in this world right now. And I see these dudes on social media that have this stupid stuff to say, and they have daughters. It blows my mind that any girl dad could look at somebody like this president we have right now and be like, you know what? That's a good man. I support this man. How? I don't get it. Let me move on before, I rant early. Yeah. All right. So yeah. So the last question, this is our unfiltered. I feel like that should be the last question, but I do have the last one that I always like to ask, right? Let's talk about just the party that you're running for, on that ticket, right? You get to the Twin Cities, you're now in the House. Is there, and maybe there's not one, but is there a single issue, that where you fundamentally disagree with your own party platform or leadership? And if so, are you willing to basically stand your ground? What is that issue, and are you willing to stand your ground? I'm messing this up. What issue are you willing to stand your ground on against your party leadership and not back down from?
So considering I'm friends with Brett, he's probably gonna razz me a bit on this one. I won't break on gun rights. For anyone that knows me, I could arm a small militia with what I have in my house. But that doesn't mean I don't believe in responsible gun ownership. Like, I believe one of the biggest issues with gun laws is all of our gun laws we do are reactive, not proactive. Even in Minnesota. So like we have safe storage laws. That comes in after something's happened. There's no enforcement mechanism until something happens. Until a kid gets access to a weapon and kills themselves, whether by accident or self-harm. And if it is like self-harm, like what are you're going to come in and fine a parent? Like you think that's going to, like, that parent has just gone through the worst thing in the world. They just lost their kid. That fine does nothing. But if we incentivize, which I know when people say incentivize the thing, so one of the things I proposed was we should change how we do safe storage, which is incentivize safe storage. Allow people to write off one multi-gun safe and up to two single gun safe. So that way you can have one for your concealed carry at home and then one for your concealed carry in your car. Because you're supposed to have, it's not on you, you're supposed to have it in a lockbox in the vehicle. Outside hunting. So like these are the things where I will differ because they go to one extreme where I'm like, no, we can have guns, but we definitely need to do things different around them. We're probably going to see Heller 2.0 in October, if not even before that. For anyone that follows Supreme Court cases, like I said, I know I'm a little bit of a nerd on that, but there's two different cases that are going to get pulled under one that the Supreme Court are going to look at on AR bans. So I'm I'm going to guess with the current Supreme Court makeup, we're going to see, for those that don't know what Heller I'm referring to, that was the decision that gave individuals the right to own a pistol for self-defense that was challenged in D.C. And that was in 2008. So we're probably going to see that, but now it's going to be for ARs. So if that goes through, AR bans and like that, that's no longer going to be a thing until we write a constitutional amendment to change that, which that will be a tall hill to climb. So I've always said, like, before that was even talked about, I'm like, be careful what you wish for on that. I'm like, what? This is probably not the time you want to do it right now with the Supreme Court. And now it's happening. I had that talk with Brett, and he's like, well, they haven't challenged it yet. They haven't challenged it yet. I'm like, Brett, don't say it. And here we are. And I'm obviously like, when I first started talking to Brett, I kind of went up there as quasi-ops, but me and him get along great. I always joke around that I'm his favorite homosexual. But like, we've had a lot of talks, and I've talked to him about, like, some of my views of, doing that safe storage. And he's like, 100%. I love that, because again, he's very much about, we need to at least start moving that needle. Like this, like, if we start incentivizing safe storage, and the thing that I really like about my safe storage bill is, by incentivizing it as a tax write-off, it's something we can track, that is sustainably trackable, not like estimates. We go, hey, 10,000 people applied for this tax rebate and submitted this. That means I know there are 10,000 homes in Minnesota right now that guns are now locked up in that weren't before. That's 10,000 homes where a kid's not getting access. That's 10,000 homes where someone breaks in, doesn't get a weapon, and then uses it to commit another crime or sells it to someone to commit another crime. Like, that's how we get guns off the street, because the vast majority of guns that are on the street being used illegally were purchased legally at one point.
Right.
It's not, they're not coming off of boats from Africa and they're, AK-47s from the Soviet Union like that. It's not God of War or Lord of War. If anyone watched that Nick Cage movie back in the day. But yeah, that's what, like, people don't understand where it comes from. And like, we have to take a look again at the, studies where these are legally purchased firearms that are, stolen or, sold to people that couldn't have them. So the other part that I would argue is that we put money for FFL dealers, so for private party transfers. So when, like, an individual sells to an individual, they don't have to go through it. They just have to write down, hey, I sold this gun, and hold on to the slip. But they don't really know who they sold it to. And that person that's buying it doesn't know if that weapon they're buying is was stolen or not. Like, that's how, like, a lot of these weapons trade hands. But if we're paying an FFL dealer to do a transfer, that's no cost burden onto the person purchasing or selling the gun. The FFL dealer gets money for his time, and then both the seller and the buyer know it's like, hey, this is going through a background check. I know I'm purchasing a firearm that's legal. I know I'm selling to someone that is able to buy a firearm. You're taking off that, so they don't have to worry that they're going to go into a, court to be like, no, I have this paper. See, I sold this guy. Like, it takes all of the burden off of them. And like, I think if we did like these proactive measures that a lot of people don't seem interested with on my side of the aisle, I think we could make headway on the exact issues they want to make headway on. They just don't want to do it the way I want to do it, as someone that's come from a gun background. And so that was one of the first things when I was down at the state convention. I started getting introduced to some of the different people from around the state, and one of the senators come up and he's like, "Oh, you're the gun Democrat, aren't you?" Like, that is, like, had literally gotten around. That was like 90% of my platform. That's how they, like, all of them was referring to me as. And I'm like, again, obviously I'm very different from a lot of the Metro Democrats that see firearms in a lot different light than I do. But I think we can find that ground that gets what they want to have accomplished, but protects my right to, bear arms as well.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Fun fact, I'm going to have Brett on the show here pretty soon. I don't have a date yet, but we're going to have this conversation. And I'm with you. Like, it's funny that a lot of people on the right think, and I see this on social media all the time, like, you all just want to take them away. No, because I don't want to give mine up. On the other side of this wall right here, I've got a safe full. I probably have more than a lot of conservatives out here that say they have them. We just want safer. We want to figure out something to keep kids safe. Bottom line, right? Keep everybody safe, but
100%.
but especially kids, you know? So yeah. Dynamite, what's up? Good to see you. Good to see you. All right. So that's it. I love that answer, by the way. I love it. And I'm looking forward to having Brett on. Brett's a good dude. And one thing about Brett, you mentioned that you went up as his, like, you know, quasi ops or whatever. One thing I know about Brett, even if you are ops, if you are respectful and have a conversation, dude will talk to anybody, you know?
Oh yeah, that's 100%.
Yeah.
That's how it started. I kind of came up there, you know, I questioned some things. Me and him had like a little bit of like back and forth, and then all of a sudden it was like, and then all of a sudden he started hearing the points I was hitting on, as even though someone coming up, and he's like, I think we're pretty close. And I'm like, I think we are too. We don't talk about the time I went up on his panel when I was intoxicated. That was kind of a hilarious time, but Brett had to redact me on that one. I might have gotten a little out of pocket.
Cherry, apparently you hit the translation somewhere. You're coming through in English, just so you know. So that's good. I can read what you're saying. All right. So listen, if you want to follow, and I recommend you do, follow Nick here. His social medias. I've got TikTok and Facebook. Let me know if I missed anything, but I couldn't find you on Instagram. But TikTok at Nick Hansen, MN House 9A. If you search for Nick Chewy Hanson, you'll find him that way. And then on Facebook, Nicholas Hansen District 9A. Is there anything that I missed there?
So those are the two main ones. I mean, I got like a website, but like 90% of what I post can either be on TikTok or Facebook, or if you want to communicate with me, that's the best way to do it, because my email and stuff that's on my website, that gets just inundated with campaign emails, buy postcards and signage and mailing and TV slots and all. Like, people have messaged me on there, and it gets just completely lost, if I'm being honest.
Yep. So that's where you can find them at. I want to pull this. Match the Stampede. I grew up conservative. They've been saying that about Dems for decades. I know now they don't want that at all. No, I mean, right. So let's be honest. There are some people out there that would love to see guns completely go away, but a majority of people, that's not what they want. We just want them safer. I'm not giving mine up. I'll be honest. There's no way. I don't want to give mine up. But I do keep them locked up, and I'm responsible with it. And that's really all anybody's asking is ways to make them safer, right? Hey, what's up, Shane? Good to see you, brother. Good to see you, man. Hope your show went well. As soon as I get the button to work. Yeah, I hope your show went well, man. So Liquid Shano, he used to do some YouTube stuff similar to this. He's on a break right now, but he does music live streams on TikTok. He was playing an hour of Dolly Parton tonight, and then went into like a request hour. But for those that heard the news about Dolly Parton, he played an hour of Dolly on his show. So, yeah, exactly. Responsible gun ownership is what we're looking for. Yeah. All right, Nick. So that's pretty much all I have. Last word before you get out of here.
Last word. Outside of go out and vote. Obviously, up and down the ballot. State elections matter. Read your Constitution, Article 2, Section 4, if you don't know it. That's everyone's homework tonight.
It's funny. I was looking when we started talking about that. I was looking for my Constitution, but it's laying over in my recording area. It's not here. So, I did see. I think it was Cherry Cherry put a comment that you hand out many Constitutions at your events and stuff.
Yeah. So I've handed out. I ordered 1,000. I think I have less than 100 left that I've handed out between fairs, parades, and stuff like that.
That's awesome. That's one of the best things you can do, man. People need to read the Constitution, 100%.
Well, and it breaks down barriers too. In a parade I was at, we were getting heckled by a guy. There was the DFL float or whatever, and I was kind of trailing behind it, and he was, Democrats don't believe in the rule of law, blah, 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 like MAGA talking point. I walked up to him, I pulled out the Constitution and handed it to him. Stops, he looks at that, looks at me, he's like, you might be okay. And then took one of my campaign pins.
Nice. Yeah. Rule of law. Meanwhile, you voted for a 34-time convicted felon who was also found liable of sexual assault. So, go figure. All right. Well, Nick, thanks for taking the time tonight. I appreciate it. And for those that don't know, he also said maybe you're local or whatever. He's also getting ready for, what'd you say, a podcast and a couple of TV appearances here coming up?
Yeah, so I'm going to be on a local area. It's like PEG Access. And then I'll be on PBS, which is statewide, Prairie Public Broadcasting. I'm not sure if you guys get that in Wisconsin. I know the Dakotas and Minnesota have it, at least.
I don't think so.
But that goes out on like all the local channels and stuff, and that's used to be funded by the government, but God forbid we have free access to the news anymore. But yeah, so I've got that coming up. I'll probably be dropping some of that information on when those will debut on my TikTok and Facebook.
All right. Yep. Everybody's saying bye to you. Cherry says, love you, Chewy. So proud of you. Mrs. Ham says, thank you. Good luck. Amazing show. Go get them, Chewy. A lot of kudos for you in the chat. So looking forward to seeing what happens over the next couple of months, and looking forward to your victory party.
There we go.
I'll try to see if I can find that. Maybe stream that or something, because I don't get Minnesota TV. So
all right.
All right, man. We'll appreciate it. Have a good night, and we'll be talking to you. Thanks for taking the time.
Yeah, thank you, Ken.
All right. See ya. All right. Again, like every week, I mean, these candidates that come on and talk, I'm always looking forward to what they're going to do. I think another great one there. I think Chewy is going to be great for Minnesota. Anybody that talks Constitution like that, I'm definitely down. So looking forward to what happens there. All right. So here we go. I'm going to make this quick because we are closer to the hour here, and I want to get you all out of here. But I do have to rant for a minute. Yeah, you already knew it was coming, right? You already knew it was coming. And tonight, well, I guess before we get to it, I'm trying to get this to work. Your comment won't come up. Yeah. So let's talk about farmers, because that's the big topic of this week, right? And tonight, I don't even want to talk about farmers because I've done enough of that on TikTok. But here's what I want to talk about. Let's go to, let's just do it.
What the is this world? What have they done to us? What did they do to us?
All right. And Nick says, back for the rant. I'm glad you're back. I didn't know what to title this because there's so many things that I have to say on this topic. And I've said a lot of them already on TikTok, but it's been all weekend long since the news broke. So for those of you that don't know, the news broke, what was it, Thursday or Friday? I don't remember what day exactly, but so the Trump administration is now talking about we're going to import 300,000 metric tons of Argentinian beef, right? Don't know if it's actually true or not, because you can't find any source outside of that shows that it's true. No confirmation from Argentina. So who knows? The guy's full of shit and lies more than a high school kid, right? Here's the thing, though. Farmers, obviously, you've all seen them on TikTok. Farmers have caught on to this, and some farmers are mad about it. Some farmers are like, hey, whatever. I've seen so many farmers that are like going after consumers. They're mad at consumers. I don't know what that's about, but that's not what I want to talk about tonight. What I want to talk about tonight is the fact that Democrats need to work on their messaging when it comes to farmers, right? Democrats, I don't know how many of you know the history. Like, I did a video talking about this because somebody asked me the question. Democrats historically, if you go back and look at what Democrats have done for agriculture, have always been the better party, and they've had better policy for farms in general, right? If we go back to the 1920s, let me get this ready because I got some screen shares, some stuff to show. So if we go back to the 1920s, right? So the question that I got on TikTok was can you tell me what Democrats have ever done? Somebody made a comment about, well, Democrats don't do anything either. How about this, right? So 1921, the Packers and Stockyards Act, right? This is the bill that was supposed to take care of the problem that farmers have today. And that's the fact that the meat packers pretty much run the show. The meat packers make the money. There's a monopoly, quote unquote, sort of a monopoly when it comes to the meat packer companies. There's 4 big companies right now, right? And those 4 big companies are Tyson Foods, JBS USA, Cargill Meat Products, and National Beef Packing Company, right? Those are the 4 companies that farmers can have their meat processed by, right? Their beef, whatever, pork, all of it, but it gets processed by those packers, right? The reason for this Packers and Stockyards Act of 1921 is because that same thing was going on back in the early 1900s, right? There was an FTC investigation in 1919 that revealed essentially what we're dealing with now, and that's that the Big 5 meatpacking cartel had formed an illegal monopoly, right? And here were the Big 5. I had to make a note on this. These were the Big 5 companies from 1919, the early 1900s, that kind of held a monopoly over meatpacking and were, raising costs and really screwing farmers back then. Swift and Company, you're gonna remember a lot of these, right? Swift and Company, Armour and Company. Armour, from, now you can buy like the potted meat and the Vienna sausages and that crap. And I say that crap because those are nasty if you eat them, sorry. I can't. But anyway, Armour and Company, Morris and Company, Wilson and Company, and the Cudahy Packing Company, right? Now, fun fact, all of these companies were based out of Chicago. All 5 of these companies were based out of Chicago. And their processing plants were pretty much in the same places around the country also. You had, for the most part, you had Omaha, Nebraska. You had Kansas City, Kansas, St. Paul, Minnesota, Fort Worth, Texas, and St. Joseph, Missouri. And then a couple of them, like Cudahy, had a Los Angeles processing plant. There was one of the other ones, I think it was Wilson, had like Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Like there were a few more, right? But those 5 companies were pretty much the meatpacking cartel of then, right? So what happened from that is that there was an investigation, and 1920s progressives, and I say progressives because in the 1920s they were Republicans. We all know about the party switch. Republicans today will pretend that wasn't a thing, but the progressive Republicans created this act, this Packers and Stockyards Act, which broke up those monopolies, right? And everything has been going great since. The question that somebody asked me the other day was, what have Democrats done for agriculture? What bills have they passed? And my response to this person was, you don't have to pass a bill because there's already a bill, right? Now, I can tell you what presidents have done to strengthen this bill since then. I can tell you which ones have passed laws and created things to make it stronger, and I can tell you which administrations have gutted it. And for the chat, you tell me right now which party you think deregulated the most in favor of the meatpacking companies over the last several decades, going back to Clinton. Which party do you think, if you had to take a wild guess, which party do you think has deregulated and made it worse on farmers? If you had one guess, I bet you get it right. But let's go back and talk about it, right? So going back to the Clinton administration, right? Anyway, here's the bill. If you want to read the actual bill, if you're a nerd like me and just like to read old bills, you can just search for Packers and Stockyards Act of 1921 and you'll find it. It is on the house.gov website. But let's, I got too many tabs open. I've got resources are being killed here. Come on, I need you to open. There we go. Maybe not. Okay, well, anyway, what this was supposed to be, apparently the Federal Register, the National Archives are having issues. So going back to Clinton, right? During the Clinton administration, the Grain Inspection, Packers and Stockyards Administration, so GIPSA, was created. That's the administration that makes sure that meat packers are doing right by farmers. They're making sure that the laws are being followed for this Packers and Stockyards Act, right? So that administration was created. They also created the Livestock Mandatory Price Reporting Act, which basically forced meat packers to be upfront and transparent about what pricing was for livestock, right? Not just beef, not just not just cows, but pork, chicken, eggs, basically anything like that that comes from a farm. the Clinton administration actually passed legislation to make sure that these meat packers were being honest about what the pricing was for this. Because used to, back in the day, like, farmers would not really know what pricing was. Like, backroom deals could be made and they get all kinds of pricing from these meat packers. And this made sure that that there was transparent pricing, right? So the farmers knew what pricing they were looking for, right? So that happened, right? Then we go to the Obama administration. The Obama administration passed stricter GIPSA rules under the Packers and Stackyards Act to stop meat packers from price fixing, manipulating contracts, and retaliating against livestock owners if they may be sued for breach of contract or questioned or whatever. The Obama administration actually strengthened that, right? So that was Obama, right? So again, made that bill stronger for farmers, protecting farmers. All right, so let's go to 2017, the Trump administration. And I couldn't find the article that I was looking for. Oddly enough, I'm going to claim conspiracy right now because I had this article the other day and now magically this article is not available on this website. I don't know why. But there was an actual article about what Trump did, right? So now Trump comes into office and he sides with the meatpacking industry, with meatpacking industry lobbyists, over independent producers. He killed those GIPSA protection rules, the ones that Obama put into place. The Trump administration killed those, right? And it created an unfair practice where farmers now had to basically go out of their way to prove that something that they were trying to complain to GIPSA about or to the meat packers about, they had to prove that it was going to hurt farmers nationally and not just them. Makes no sense to me. So they couldn't just sue over like contract fraud or retaliation. Essentially, the big four companies that we have now were shielded against lawsuits. Farmers could not just as easily sue them or, try to find some. The meat packers were shielded, right? So that was the Trump administration. Farmers had zero legal recourse against price manipulation. Okay, go to the Biden administration, the next administration, right? The USDA revived the anti-monopoly rules. So the stuff that Trump threw out, the Obama administration brought that back. So they brought back protection for farmers. And also invested $1 billion into meat and poultry processing, more independent processing. So farmers had more options than just those big four meat processing plants, right? They also finalized the Product of USA rule, which is labeling to show where your beef is coming from, your pork, your chicken, whatever. The labeling, you see Product of USA or Product of Brazil or Venezuela or whatever. That rule was finalized under the Biden administration, right? Now, in 2026, we're right back now to where meat packers are gouging farmers, and the Trump administration is working for, and you guys all nailed it in the comments. Republicans have always tried to deregulate this bill to protect the big companies instead of protecting farmers, right? So here's my point of saying all this, right? Democrats somehow need to do more to change their messaging. Democrats need to change their messaging and work on their messaging and make sure that they're reaching farmers, because farmers overwhelmingly vote Republican. In the 2024 election, 77% of white farmers in the United States voted for the Trump administration. The same administration that brought on tariffs and the retaliatory tariffs that are skyrocketing their cost of feed, cost of fertilizer, cost of equipment, while at the same time now their exports are not worth as much. Their income is down. 2025, I think it was $26.7 billion in decreased revenue for farmers. That's the Trump administration. So Democrats are better for farmers historically, going all the way back to the 1920s. But for whatever reason, farmers still vote Republican. So that's my rant. My rant is not necessarily like farmers. My rant is for Republicans. Do something to reach these farmers and get your messaging make sure that farmers understand that your policy is better for them than Republican policy. Conservative policy is terrible for farmers. And if you do that, then we would not see 77% of white farmers voting for literally I don't want to say the demise, but the hardships that they're having right now are because of their vote, right? So that's my rant. I wanted to take it easy on the farmers because I've been tough on farmers on social media. Yeah, Carl, exactly. And this is going to happen. I would put money on, I'm hitting the wrong button. I would put money on the fact that this is going to happen next year, 2027. It's going to happen before the 2028 election. That's a good point. I'm glad you brought that up because this is what farmers see, right? Farmers work sun up to sundown. They are hardworking people, and this country needs farms to survive. We are grateful. I guess I can't speak for everybody, but we should be grateful. We should want farms to survive. We should be grateful for all the hours they put in to feed us because they do. So they may not necessarily have time to research and know all this stuff, which is why I say Democrats need to find some way to reach them and let them know. But then this will happen. They'll get the bailouts and Republicans will save the day. And for them, that's what they will see because they don't necessarily have time to research and dig deep into, the history of policies and things that these administrations have done. So yeah, I guarantee you it happens 100%. Yeah, we will not survive. Our economy would collapse without farmers, without farms. If the farming industry collapsed tomorrow and went away, if farmers sold their stock, sold their farms, our entire economy would collapse. So anyway, Democrats need to work on their messaging so that farmers know that their policies are better for them. That's my rant. As always, let me know in the chat what you think. Maybe you got a different thought that I didn't think of or something that you know about that I didn't mention. Maybe I don't know. So definitely let me know. I'm going to go back through the comments you've left in the last few minutes. Let's see. Let me scroll up a little bit. Yeah, definitely Republicans. Yeah, you all knew. You knew where I was going. You knew anyway. So I've learned a lot of things over the last few days. There is, and I know this won't help you because you're not on Facebook, but if you're on Facebook, there is a group that's called Blue Dot Farmers. I think it's called Blue Dot. Hold on, I'll tell you for sure. Blue Dot. Hold on, I'm going to get you. Yeah, Blue Dot Farmers. Actually, I'm in that group. I had to request. But there is a Blue Dot Farmers group on Facebook. So if you search that, go to groups, you'll see it. And I've seen some people on social media saying that they're working on websites and stuff to try to compile a list of blue farmers that voted for Democratic policy, that did not vote for, that were basically in that 22% that did not vote for this administration. Yeah, there's a couple. So Necessary Noise is one. He's working on compiling a list, and there's a few more that I've seen. I'm not sure if that's who you were talking about, but there's a couple that I've seen. Yeah, you can lead a horse to water for sure. I am grateful to farmers, and I want to understand their political leanings also. Democrats have to, I'll just mirror this comment, have to take a harder stance. They have to reach these farmers and let them know their plans. Carl, I would never put you in one of those videos, but I'm going to start making more of those. Some of the worst Facebook comments are going to make it on TikTok videos. So anyway, that's my rant for tonight. Democrats have to reach farmers. And with that, we are pretty much done for tonight. Let me know in the next minute or so what you got going on this week. If there's anything that you want to cover, whatever, anything you want to say. But hey, thanks for being here tonight. I appreciate you all so much. I love Tuesday nights. I love hanging out. We're coming to a part of the channel where I'm going to start doing some more uploaded content. I'm going to start putting shorts out more. But the stream is also going to change because we're coming to the end of election season. So, candidates won't be a thing necessarily. I've got next week, I do have a candidate from Iowa, Stephanie Steiner. And oddly enough, the thing she wants to talk about most is something I don't know a lot about. And that is it the PFAS, the PSAF, something with the water? It's not a topic that I am well versed in. But that's something in Iowa. I guess Iowa has some of the highest cancer rates in the country because of their PFAS in the water or something like that. Some of y'all know what I'm talking about. But we'll be talking to her next week. And then after that, I don't have any more candidates scheduled yet. So I'm going to be kind of switching things up a little bit. I'm still going to do interviews because I love doing freaking interviews. I love talking to people. Brett Cross will be on. We're working out what Tuesday he's going to make it. And there's other people that I plan on wanting to sit down and talk with. But the show is gonna go through a little change like that just because naturally election season's coming to an end for now. I'm glad you did too, Agent. I'm glad you're here as always. And Sherry, thank you. Yeah, hate the president, not the people. We're with you on that one. We hate the president too. But anyway, thank you all so much for hanging out tonight. I'll keep updating about who's coming on and what's going on, but annex the UP. Annex Wisconsin. Make Wisconsin part of Canada. Anyway, thanks so much for hanging out tonight. Y'all could have been anywhere else, but you chose to hang out here, and I'm so grateful to all of you. Try to find some way this week to make somebody's week better. You never know what that random act of kindness will do for somebody to change their day, change their week, change their entire year, change their life. You never know. Yeah, thank you, Dino. That's it. PFAS. PFAS in the water. Yeah, we'll be talking about that in Iowa next week, so looking forward to that. That's a topic that I need to research this week because I know this much about it, very little. So I need to do my homework. But anyway, try to find some way to make somebody's day better. And as always, have a great week. Love y'all. We'll see you next week. Good night, everybody.